In your working folder, you have one thing. It's called rasterize.ai, so it'll be easy to find. Go ahead and open that up for me if you would. We're going to talk about taking beautiful, perfect, resolution-independent vector graphics and convert them into resolution-dependent images. Now, the first question is why, and there are reasons. We talked a little bit about this earlier. Rasterization of an image can be accomplished for the reason that it's too complicated. Now, our gal actually, this one right here, and we'll call him a guy over here, are not really that complicated. If we come up here to the word view and go down to outline, you can see the paths that make this up. Now, that doesn't really take into account things like gradient mesh complexities, stuff like that, but you can see the paths. So it's not the end of the world. These probably would not have a problem with any press in terms of complexity. Let's take it back into preview, and that's a control in Windows or a command on a Macintosh Y to go back and forth. It makes it a little bit easier. But the reason might be that it is too complicated. Remember that an image in Illustrator is made up of anchor points connecting paths, that basically the anchor points hold math to control the path, and the more anchor points, the more complex. You can have documents that are really complicated. Press operator comes back and says, "Oh man, we can't do this. It's locking up our press. It just takes too much memory." So you're going to have to convert that into a raster. Now, believe it or not, when you convert a vector into a raster, it's actually much bigger. There's no math, but there are a lot of pixels, so you might think of that like a lot of math as opposed to a lot of bricks. Math is on paper, bricks weigh a lot, and raster images typically are bigger in terms of file size, but they're less complex for something like a press to print. So that could be one of the reasons. Another one might be in the form of text and things where you really need the text to look good and you've really changed it around a lot, so you rasterize it so it prints well. There's a lot of reasons. Another reason might be you want to take the cat out to the internet and you want to save them as a GIF as opposed to an AI because a website doesn't take Adobe Illustrator documents. Now you could SVG it or maybe take it through Flash, but GIF would be fine. So there are a lot of reasons why you might want to do this. To do it, though, it's very easy. We can come over and select the one that we want to convert to pixels. And we come up to the word Effect on the pull-down menu and go down to Rasterize. Now, if this area looks familiar to you, it should be because it's very similar to what we looked at when we talked about the document rasterize effects. This one's different. It only works with the image you have selected, not the entire document. So we have the color model up here. Now, if we were in CMYK, that would be CMYK there. You have a resolution. Let's say we're going out to a press, so we probably wanted it something around 300. Now, you have this one right here. Use document raster effects resolution. Let me get out of here for a second. That's the stuff that we looked at earlier, this one. You set this up for the entire document. If you want to use the same one down here, you can. Let's go back to rasterize. Let's leave that at 300. There are very few cases where I wouldn't want this as transparent. There might be, but most of the time, no. I want that as transparent. One of the reasons might be ultimately it's going out to be a JPEG, and JPEGs don't support transparency. Otherwise, I'm going to probably leave that at transparent. Now, your anti-aliasing options, you do have an art optimized or type optimized. So I think I would go art on this one. Now, we're not going to do clipping mask. We'll talk about that later. And we can add a little bit of space all the way around it, and you click OK. Now, if you look at that, you go, well, wait a minute. It still looks vector. And Andy, I used Illustrator years ago, and it had a rasterize feature. And when you clicked OK, it turned that into pixels just like Photoshop. Here's the beauty of using it now. It is raster, okay? If I come over here and zoom in, you can see it is raster. But it's still a raster that allows me to control it as vector. And the only time it goes to raster is when you output it. So I still have control of this. Let me do this. Let me come back to a reasonable size, and let's zoom in on El Gato. Okay, I can go as big as I want to on this guy, and he looks good because he hasn't been rasterized yet. So let's select him. Let's go up to the word effect and go down to rasterize. And we'll use 72 on this guy. He's going out to the internet. He's going to be GIFed. We'll leave everything else alone here and click OK. Now you can see what it looks like at 300%. You can see the pixelization. But if I pick up my selection tool and I double-click on his eye, and double-click takes me into isolation mode, and I begin going in, I'm vector controlling that eye. I can do anything I want. What it will do, it will resample and redraw the image based on what I have done and then convert it back into raster. So even though this image technically is going to output as raster, I still have control of it if I want to change things, and it's not going to impact its quality. That's cool. That's not a new feature, but it's relatively new, and I love the ability to be able to do that. The best of both worlds, vector and raster.